Let's face it, weight loss can feel overwhelming. That's why Hers is changing the game. By providing access to GLP-1 medications plus expert care, they make your goals more achievable. Hers is transforming women's healthcare by providing access to affordable weight loss treatment plans delivered straight to your door if prescribed. Hers offers a holistic weight loss program with personalized solutions including compounded GLP-1 weekly injections featuring the same active ingredient as Ozempic and Wegovy or oral medication kits. So after submitting an online intake form, a licensed medical provider will determine what plan is best for you. And if prescribed, your program includes medication, ongoing care, and online support, and all at one cost. So if you've been struggling with your weight loss journey, it's time for you to find the best option that works for you through Hers. Start your initial free online visit today at forhers.com/KateCasey. That's forhers.com/KateCasey for your personalized weight loss treatment options. forhers.com/KateCasey. Hers weight loss is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. Actual price depends on product and plan purchased. Now, we both know that shopping for a rug can be challenging. You've either got insanely expensive handcrafted rugs or the mass-produced alternatives that won't hold up. But that's where Revival Rugs comes in. Revival's founders didn't want to spend thousands on a new rug, but they didn't want to settle for less either. Revival is a global company with teams in the U.S. as well as weaving regions in India, Turkey, and Morocco. Revival works with artisans to preserve rug-making traditions and pass on this value to you. Eliminating middlemen allows them to remove steep markups, giving you amazing value at incredible prices. And Revival's popular washable rugs have the look and feel of a real rug, so you don't have to sacrifice style for convenience. And my favorite, which I ordered, is the sweatshirt rug, and I also love the stripe rug. So spruce up your space with Revival Rugs. Visit revivalrugs.com/realitylife and use code KateCasey20 for 20% off your first order. That's revivalrugs.com/realitylife, code KateCasey20. One more time, revivalrugs.com/realitylife with code KateCasey20 to save 20%. Welcome back for another episode of Reality Life with Kate Casey, and welcome back for this Saturday series episode. Some of my favorite stories are love stories. A few weeks ago, I came across a beautiful story scrolling through posts on Instagram. Jack Ciapciak first met Jack Lorentzen in 2016. Jack Lorentzen grew up in Westfield, New Jersey, was a Division I swimmer at Lehigh University, and after college had moved to Hoboken and began his career at Brooklinen as one of its first employees, running the customer service team. Jack Ciapciak is a New York-based TV writer. The two Jacks met through mutual friends, both of whom happened to be named Kate. They fell in love, moved in together, and when the pandemic hit, Jack the writer started going on hour-long walks every day alongside the West Side Highway. And eventually the other Jack began to join him. After a few years of dating, in September of 2022, Jack, the TV writer, decided to propose to Jack Lorentzen at a park near that West Side Highway, right along the path in which they had been walking. A temporary plaque had been made that said, "Will you marry me?" And he had planned to replace it later with a permanent plaque that would say, Jack and their wedding date, October 14th, 2023. But 3 months after getting engaged, Jack Lorentzen died suddenly. In the months and the years that have followed Jack Lorentzen's death, Jack Ciapciak has found himself on those daily West Side Highway walks again. And each time he stops at that bench and thinks about the incredible love that he had. So he replaced that plaque with something that seemed to be fitting, something that would always be a remembrance of Jack Lorentzen, his favorite movie, Never Been Kissed. So the plaque now says, "Find out who you are and try not to be afraid of it." So he shared this story on social media, and it's making its way around the world. To me, to many of you, and even to Drew Barrymore, who was in the movie Never Been Kissed, and even got a tattoo that says "Time" in dedication to Jack Lorentzen. I love this story because it's the story of a special love and of the beautiful way that Jack Ciapciak has honored his Jack. Helen Keller once said, "What we have once enjoyed, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes part of us. No one is immune to loss. I hope this story, his story, and his words of encouragement touch you, especially if you are currently in a season of grief. Here is my interview with Jack. Jack, first of all, it's nice to meet you. I also have a son named Jack, by the way. It's one of my favorite names.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
Such a great name. And it turns out that I know your sister-in-law.
Yes, Natalie Buck. I'm thrilled to meet you, and thank you so much for having me on today.
Where are you from originally?
I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and I moved to New York for college. I went to NYU. So I've been here in New York for about 14 years. But I get back home to St. Louis a lot. I love St. Louis.
Did you go to school, did you grow up outside the city, in the city?
I was in the county, so in a suburb, a town called Ladue.
Tell me about your family.
I have a very close family. I have an older sister, Tina. She's married and lives in St. Louis. She has 3 kids. She just had a baby girl in October, who was my first goddaughter. And her husband, Kevin, are just incredible parents and the sweetest, kindest people. My parents are also still in St. Louis, and I had the best parents. I have the best parents. And I was so lucky growing up to have them as my mom and dad. They're incredible people. And then my older brother, Bobby, lives here in New York. He just got married last month to Natalie, who you know. And I'm grateful that I have them here in New York with me. So I'm very lucky. I've got a close family that, there's a lot of love there, and they've all gotten me through the last few years. And I wouldn't be sitting here today if it weren't for my family.
So when you went to New York, you went for school. What was your major and what was your sort of childhood dream? What did you want to do?
So I grew up doing a lot of theater, and I actually started at NYU as an acting major at Tisch School of the Arts. And I spent a year in the acting program and decided that it wasn't my dream anymore. I kind of fell out of love with acting. And after a year, I transferred into their dramatic writing program, and I studied screenwriting, playwriting, and TV writing. And so I ended up with a degree in dramatic writing, and I've been working in TV since I graduated. I grew up writing as like a hobby on the side, but never really considered it being, something that I was capable of actually doing. And then once I got to college, I decided to kind of take that leap.
What was your first TV writing job?
It was on the show Blue Bloods on CBS. So I actually interned for the writers there my last semester of college, and then was hired full-time out of school as a writer's assistant. And I spent 9 years there and worked my way up from an intern to a co-producer by the final season. I wrote 11 episodes, and I had the best experience there. Got to work with such incredible people. And it's bittersweet. The show just ended. Our final episode aired in December. And so it's bittersweet. I miss the people, but it was an incredible experience that I'm very grateful for.
What has been like the dream TV writing job? Like if you could just, dream it out, what would be like your ideal TV writing opportunity? And is that what you want to continue to do?
It is. And I've always wanted to create my own show and, be a showrunner and an executive producer. I'd like to do something more in the comedy space. I loved working for a police procedural, but I don't think it's what I'm best suited for. It's kind of where I was able to get my foot in the door, and then I learned on the fly. But going into Blue Bloods, like I never in a million years thought I would be writing a cop show. When I started there, I was like, I don't know anything about how any of this works. I was thankfully surrounded by a great team of technical advisors who, helped us make things realistic and helped us shape our stories. And I loved it. But I think I'd rather be in the comedy space. I think that's where I would do better work. And right now I'm developing some of my own projects. And then, I want to share my story, and that's why I'm grateful to be here today. And I the fact that something so tragic happened to me and I'm a writer, it's like, I have to write about this. So I think my next project will be something to do with the experience I've been through. And I hopefully, because I'd love to share my story and help it, reach a bigger audience.
What would people be surprised to know about a TV writer?
Ooh, good question. I think everyone thinks of it as a very fun job, and it is, but it's also very stressful. There's a lot of pressure. And I think maybe people don't realize how collaborative it is. We have a team of, I think there were 10 writers on the final season. So you're working with a lot of other people. There's a showrunner who you're working for, and your job as a writer in the writer's room is to bring the showrunner's vision to life. So it's a very collaborative process. And so I think that might surprise people.
And how does it work? Do you begin the season and there's a storyboard and you're given certain episodes, or do they give you certain plot lines and you have to kind of build around it?
Right. So the way we did it at Blue Bloods, I think, was a little unusual. Our showrunner divided up the episodes at the start of the season. So the last season I did 3 episodes. And we would have a tiny meeting at the beginning of the season to talk about some general big things that were going to happen. But each episode kind of stood alone. So we all kind of started by working independently. I got to come up with the idea for the episode I was going to write, pitch it to my boss, pitch it to the network, and take it from a story idea to a first draft on my own. And then, I would then collaborate with the showrunner who would, do a pass on each script. And so but there was a lot of freedom at Blue Bloods. I could find stories that I wanted to tell and things I wanted to talk about, and I got to pitch whatever I wanted, and that was amazing because it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes when you're in a room, you're assigned an episode that it was someone else's idea. So it was a great experience, and I loved it. Yeah.
So how did you meet Jack?
So Jack and I met through mutual friends. On my 23rd birthday, I had a birthday party at my apartment, and a friend of mine from St. Louis named Kate came and brought a friend from college, also named Kate, and they had both attended Lehigh. And my Kate's friend Kate said, "Hey, I don't know if you'd ever date someone with the same name as you, but this great guy I know from Lehigh named Jack just came out, and I think you two would really get along." And it had never dawned on me, the whole Jack and Jack thing, that I could date someone with the same name. But I said, sure, I don't care. They showed me his Instagram, and I remember thinking, oh, he's really cute. I'll go out for a drink, see what happens. And so a week later, I met him for beers at this bar called Finnerty's in the East Village. And that was the only date we ever had. It's an instant connection. And I fell in love with him, within minutes of meeting him.
Was it like texting, like, I had a great time, what are you doing tomorrow? Or did you feel like, okay, I gotta pace this out. I can't let him know I'm as into him as I am.
Right. So I have zero chill, and I definitely did not play it cool. But no, I remember we texted all day the next day.
And what are you texting? Are you asking him favorite movie, favorite place to go, favorite book?
Right. I feel like we covered a lot of that on the first date. And then the text the next day were I was asking him about his day. He was at work. We were both a little hungover because we kind of had a few too many beers the first night. So stuff like that. And then I asked him, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I invited him to come to this bar, JG Mellon's, where I was going to be hanging out with my brother and his friends. And he did. He came the next day and met all of the people in my life that I spent my time with. And that was kind of our second date. I kind of threw him into the deep end, and everyone there fell in love with him. And we had this awesome day, and we were together, moving forward after that.
Well, tell me about your Jack. Where did he grow up, and what brought him to the city?
He grew up in Westfield, New Jersey. And after college, his parents moved to Hoboken. So he was living in Hoboken with his parents and his twin sister, Charlotte, when we met. And he was working at a customer experience firm in Hackensack, actually, when we met. So he was commuting to Hackensack. And shortly after we met, he got a job at Brooklinen in Brooklyn. And then we moved in together after a year of dating here in the city.
And were his friends and family surprised that he got so serious about someone so quickly?
I think so. And he came out to his family in December, and then we met in January. So it was quick.
No way.
Yeah. So it was very quick. And I'm sure that, I think some of them were taken by surprise. He wasn't someone that I think some of his family didn't expect him. Wasn't expecting him to come out and be gay. So I think it was a lot all at once, for them to take in. But his family's amazing, and they welcomed me, warmly. And
what about Charlotte? Did Charlotte?
She's incredible. She's just she's a beautiful person. And I think she maybe always knew that he was. But I think she was surprised by how quickly he found someone. So I think that definitely, shocked everyone.
So how long were you together before you really started thinking about, this? You're somebody that I really want to spend the rest of my life with?
Yeah. I think it was, this sounds cliche, but it was pretty instant. We told each other we loved each other after 2 weeks of knowing each other. And I remember having the realization probably like a month in that, if I screw this up, I'm going to regret it for the rest of my life. Wow. There was just something so special about him and the way he made me feel. And it was just unlike anything I'd experienced. And I knew how special he was. And I knew that I would be lucky to get to spend the rest of my life with him. And I didn't want to blow it, Yeah.
So from the time that you met him to the point of engagement, how long was that?
It was about 6.5 years. So, so we dated. So we met January 2016 and didn't get engaged until September of 2022. And we moved in together after a year of dating. And, after like 5 years, I felt like we were practically married, and neither of us were in any rush to get married. We were young when we met. We were 23. So finally, though, as our friends around us started getting engaged and getting married, we started talking about it. And I told him that I wanted to be the one to propose. So we had that conversation. And I'm so thrilled that I did it. And I almost waited. So I proposed to him in September of 2022. He passed that December. And I almost waited and was going to do a proposal around Christmas. And I'm so grateful that I didn't, and that I did it when I did, that we were able to have, that moment together and celebrate with all of our friends and family.
I love the look of luxury, but knowing that I got it at a great price. And I feel like you're like me too. And that's why I know you're going to love Quince. Quince is my go-to for luxury essentials at affordable prices. I get DMs all the time. Where did you get that sweater? I'm telling you, I got it at Quince. You know why? They offer high quality items at prices within reach. And the best part, all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. So they do this by partnering directly with top factories. So Quince cuts the cost of the middleman and then passes the savings on to us. And the best part, it only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And who doesn't love that? In fact, the thing you need to get right now are the toasted almond silk pajamas. It's a beautiful gift for someone in your life or just for yourself. So give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/KKC for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/KKC to get your free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/KateCasey.
Behind the delivery trucks that keep your life stocked, thousands of employees at BP go to work every day. People bringing a new offshore production platform online. People making our refineries capable of more, like making renewable diesel from agricultural waste. People trading and shipping fuels to our customers. And people helping truckers fill up and get maintenance at our convenient locations. They're part of the more than 300,000 jobs BP supports across the country. Learn more at bp.com/investing in America.
Well, walk me through the engagement.
Yes. I got a bench on the West Side Highway in Hudson River Park. I go on daily walks there, and I had noticed on a walk one day a bench that said, will you marry me? And I thought, oh, that's like kind of cute and funny and different. And because he knew I was going to propose at some point, I thought I want to do something to surprise him that he won't be expecting. So I thought, hey, we love walking here every day. It would be nice to have a bench, where that could be our place. So I reached out to Hudson River Park, found the perfect location for the bench, had the plaque made, and my family was in town, and he knew my whole family was in town for the weekend. So that night, it was a Thursday night, his favorite night of the week. He loved Thursdays. And I told him that my sister had her kids over in like the park over there at the playground. And I said, oh, we're going to go meet them there before dinner. So that's how I kind of got him over to the park and dressed nicely because we were going to dinner after or whatever. And as we were walking to the playground, I said, oh, look at this bench. We stopped there. He looks down, sees it, is like, oh my God, what the hell? I got down on one knee. I proposed to him with a watch. And my cousin Meg was a great photographer. She was hiding in a bush, to capture it all on camera. And so he just was totally shocked and caught off guard and freaking out. And it was beautiful. And then after he said yes, and we had a moment at the bench, we walked to meet my family, and I had planned a sunset cruise, and his whole family was there as well. So I surprised him with his whole family. And our favorite bartender, George, who worked at the J.G. Mellon's downtown where we went the second time we met, he was on the boat behind the bar. So it was just incredible. And then, the sunset that night too. I mean, I've got to show you the photos of this. The sky, I've never seen a more beautiful sky. It was just the most perfect night. And after the sunset cruise, then we went over to Danino's, our favorite restaurant, and I had tons of our friends there waiting for us. And it was just the perfect night.
It almost sounds like a wedding, really.
Looking back, I'm like, I really went all in for this, and I'm so grateful that I did, and that we got to have that celebration with all of our, favorite people. I'm so thrilled that he got to have that, and that he got to see everyone showing up for him and celebrating him. So yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled without him.
Well, if you think about it, when someone proposes, it's such a massively, it could be stressful, and the whole operation can be draining. And somehow you were able to do that and also ensure both of your families were there. All of your friends were witness to this. And then you had this magnificent, sunset to go with it. I'm sure in retrospect, you're grateful that it all kind of played out the way it did.
Oh, absolutely. And yeah, to your point, the things that were outside of my control went well too. I could have never planned that sunset. It could have rained that night. So everything just fell into place, man. It really was perfect.
So that was September of 2022.
Yes. September 29th.
So in the months after, you're just sort of enjoying your engagement. Had you planned on a specific wedding idea?
Yes. So we picked a wedding date. It was going to be October 14th of 2023. We picked a venue in St. Louis. We hired a wedding planner. And we had our first meeting with the wedding planner the week before he died. So she was based in St. Louis, and that's where the wedding was going to be. So when we were home for Christmas, met with her, and we booked, we had a band booked and a photographer. So we kind of had knocked out all the big things. But thankfully, we hadn't sent out save the dates or even finalized invitations or any of those things. But yeah.
So walk me through the day, or maybe the day even before that he died. Yeah.
So we went to St. Louis, I want to say about 5 days before he passed. And so we spent that week in St. Louis with my family. He was working remotely. And the day he passed, we actually went to an engagement party for my friend Madigan at her parents' house. And so we were with some of my lifelong friends, some of my friends from grade school. And we had a great night at Madigan's, and my brother and Natalie were there as well. They're good friends with Madigan. So we went to this, fun party with some of my oldest and best friends and hung out, had a great night, and went home. And Jack wasn't feeling well. He started feeling sick. He thought maybe, he'd overdone it, maybe drank a little too much. And we went to bed, and then he woke me up like an hour later and just said, "Hey, I really, don't feel well." And he went to the bathroom, and I went to check on him and bring him water. And I went in there, and he was coughing, and he just kind of turned over and slipped away. And at the time, I thought he'd fallen asleep on the floor. I didn't realize that he had passed. So it was peaceful and quick, but it was devastating.
What happened in the moments after? Because like you said, he looked like he had fallen asleep. Is it just complete panic? What happens?
Totally panic, shock. I mean, I thought he had fallen asleep, so I tried to wake him up, and when he wasn't responding, I totally freaked out. So I yelled down to my dad. My dad was still awake. I knew he was downstairs, so yelled to my dad. My dad came upstairs. I started calling 911. My dad started doing CPR on him until the paramedics arrived. They were there in like 5 minutes. So by the time the paramedics got there, I feel like someone pulled me out of the room. I think my mom took me into the hallway. And I remember just sitting there and praying for him. Mm-hmm. It's all, a bit of a blur, but from what I'm told, the paramedics worked on him for about 45 minutes to an hour, and they were just never able to revive him. And the hardest part about it, in the moment and in the weeks following, was I didn't know what happened. Mm-hmm. It was so sudden, and I wasn't sure did he choke? Your mind goes a million places. I thought, oh, did someone give him something at the party? Like, did he do a drug that no one's telling me about? You go to every scenario. And so that was just very difficult to not know what happened and not know, if it wasn't something I could have prevented, or, could I have saved him? Could he have been saved? And thankfully, we got the autopsy back, a month or maybe like 6 weeks after he passed, and learned that he had an enlarged heart and this heart condition that he didn't know about. And the way it's been described to me is it's something that could have struck at any moment. And looking back, I'm so grateful it happened when we were in St. Louis with my entire family, because, if that had happened when we were alone in our apartment, I don't know what I would have done. I'm so grateful my whole family was there to get me through it. The paramedics arrived in 5 minutes. In New York, it would have taken them a half hour just to get up the 5 flights of stairs in our apartment, So yeah. I'm grateful that I know everything that could have been done for him was. And yeah.
So this condition, it's just this silent killer. There are people that have it and have no clue. Is there any way someone could figure out that there was an issue?
Yeah. Get your hearts checked. I had, I went shortly after he passed to a cardiologist and did every test they would, allow. But I don't think I'd ever even had an EKG before, and I go to my checkup every year, but as I was a 30-year-old male, they're not really checking my heart, I guess. I don't know. It's something you have to ask for, so I encourage everyone to go get their heart screened. My friends put together a fundraiser for the American Heart Association on my birthday last year. So yeah, if there's one thing I can push out there as a message, it's, go to your annual physicals and get your hearts checked.
In the weeks and the months after that you lost him, what was it that really sustained you? Because I know that there are people listening to who are right now deep in grief because they've just lost someone. What do you think were the things that, in looking back, really helped you?
The first thing, the day after Jack died, I got a text message from a family friend who had lost her son the year prior. And she said, all you can do right now is let yourself feel everything. And I really took that to heart. And, when I wanted to cry, I let myself cry. When When I was angry, I let myself be angry. I just tried to embrace every emotion as it came. If I had a small moment of joy, I let myself feel that without guilt. So I embraced every emotion. And then my family, I had this incredible support system there to kind of lift me up and lift me through it. And my work, I went back to work at Blue Bloods, probably 3 weeks after he passed. I had an outline due for my next episode 2 weeks after he died. So like the day after the funeral, I kind of threw myself into my work and my writing, and it gave me a distraction. And I will say that the team there had said, my boss had said, take all the time you need. They couldn't have been lovelier, but I chose that, no, I think I need this right now. And I'm glad I did. So getting back to work and back into that routine was very helpful. My friends, and I was given so many books. And there's one book called How to Survive the Loss of a Love that a friend gave me. And it's like short little poems. It's very easy to read. And every night before bed, I would read a few pages of it. And it just kind of calmed my mind and made me feel a little less alone, knowing that this book's been around for 40 years and that it's, consoled so many grieving people who've lost, their love. So just reading that book and knowing it had helped other people as it was helping me did make me feel, a little less alone in my grief.
What was the best thing that somebody could have done for you in the immediate aftermath? Because I think a lot of people question what to do when someone else has an extreme loss like this. And sometimes I think people think, I don't want to bother that person. They're overwhelmed right now, and I don't want to say something stupid. What is the best thing people did for you?
Great question. And I think the best thing people did for me was reaching out and just letting me know that they were thinking of me. I used to feel that way too. Like when someone, I know would lose someone, I'd think, oh, I'm not going to text them. I'm not close enough. I don't want to bother them. And I think what I realized, the moments when I was truly blown away after his passing were the people that I never expected to hear from. The people that I never expected to travel for his funeral. Those were the moments that made me just so grateful and happy. Were the people I didn't expect to hear from. So if you know someone who's lost someone in their life, send a text. Doesn't matter what you say. You could send a heart emoji, just something to let them know that you're thinking of them and they're on your mind, because there is no right thing to say. There is no wrong thing to say. Nothing you can say is going to take away their pain, but just letting them know that you're thinking of them. That really got me through those first few months. I was getting messages every day, and I knew that, it felt like the whole world was behind me, supporting me and lifting me up. And I'm so grateful for it.
As you write your life story, you're far from finished. Are you looking to close the book on your job? Maybe turn a page in your career? Be continued at the Georgetown University School of Continuing Studies. Our professional master's degrees and certificates are designed to meet you where you are and take you where you want to go. At Georgetown SCS, the learning never stops, and neither do you. Write your next chapter. Be continued at scs.georgetown.edu/podcast.
Looking for the ultimate night out? Experience the action from a luxury suite at Capital One Arena. Watch Ovechkin chase history as the Capitals hit the ice, or catch the Wizards take on the NBA's best. Rock out with Disturbed, vibe with Mary J. Blige, or dance the night away with Kylie Minogue. Premium seating, VIP service, and unforgettable moments all under one roof. Book your suite now at CapitalOneArena.com/premier. Capital One Arena. Watch in style, live in the moment.
This may seem like an odd question, but after he died and you have a funeral and you hear all of these stories about him that, predated the time that you were together, was there anything that you learned about him after death that surprised you?
Oh, that's a really good question. You know what? I don't think I was necessarily surprised, but I think the biggest, the most I learned about him that I didn't know was there was coworkers, hearing stories from these people who had worked with him the previous 6 years and about the impact he had made on their lives. The team at Brooklyn, and they planned a little memorial for him in their office a few weeks after the funeral and invited me to come in. And tons of his coworkers got up and shared stories about him. And the founder of Brooklyn and Rich talked about, Jack was their fifth hire. And he talked about how Jack had kind of shaped their culture. And it was incredible to hear how much they all loved and appreciated him. Because I knew how much he loved his job and was passionate about it. But to hear the impact he had on all of their lives, it made me so just grateful that he spent his days doing something he loved with people who appreciated him, and so that was just beautiful to witness. And I'm so grateful that they did that memorial for him and invited me, and it was beautiful. And so, yeah, I think that was the biggest surprise, was all those stories about him in a professional sense, the side of him that I didn't really get to see.
So in what ways have you kept his memory alive? Continue to keep him alive in your life despite losing him 2 years ago or 3 years ago now?
Yeah. He's the first thought on my mind when I wake up every morning. He's the last thing I think about before I go to bed. So I feel his presence with me every day. When something good happens, I want to share it with him. When something bad happens, I want to go cry to him. And so I do. I talk to him. And he had such a strong, he had such a strong personality and voice. So it's very easy for me to imagine in any situation what he would say. Mm-hmm. So I talk to him, and I feel like I can hear, what he would tell me. So I talk to him every day. I try to live like him. He was someone who just embraced life, lived life to the fullest, didn't waste a second doing something he didn't want to do. And so I try to live my life to the fullest. I feel like I have, 2 lives to live. And so he didn't sweat the small things, so I try to, I don't stress about much of anything anymore. This losing him gave me this perspective that everything in life is temporary, so if you're going through a hard time, it'll be over soon. And if you're going through a great time, that too will pass. So you just have to be present in each moment and embrace everything life throws your way. So I'm trying to honor him by making the most of my life and not letting, I remember thinking early on, I'd hear stories growing up about, oh, so-and-so lost his spouse and, oh, he was never the same. That was, his life ended with that person. And I remember just consciously thinking, I don't want to be that tragic figure. I don't want this to be the thing that ruins the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. I made a conscious choice that I'm not going to let this tragedy define me. And so I'm doing my best and trying. And, some days are still easier than others, but I'm just grateful for Jack. And, I still feel his love every day. And I feel like I was the luckiest guy in the world that he loved me and gave me all of his love. And it's still sustaining me.
Well, tell me about the bench. Let's go back to that bench.
Yes. Okay, so after the proposal, I was going to change the plaque to something that said, both of our names and maybe either the date we got engaged or maybe in the future I'd put our wedding date. But then Jack passed and I didn't know what to do at the bench. But quickly, I started receiving photos from friends. Friends were stopping by the bench and leaving flowers, and it turned into this memorial, a place where my friends were going to think about Jack and remember him. So I realized quickly, okay, I need to make a new plaque that's, in honor of Jack. But I wasn't sure what to put on it. And somehow I thought of the movie Never Been Kissed that he had loved. It was one of his favorite movies. And I remember him talking about that line once, the find out who you are and try not to be afraid of it. And just instantly I thought, wow, that is the message he'd want the world to see and have by his name. If people stop, to read his name for a moment, that's a message he'd want. Because at first I looked at all these quotes about grief, and that's great, but I wanted it to be a message, a call to action. And so I'm happy I chose that quote.
By the way, it's kind of interesting too, how apropos, because you said he came out to his family in December and he met you in January.
Yeah.
So he really lived by those words.
He did. And he always would say, once he came out, everything in his life fell into place. He got a new job. He got the job at Brooklyn and he met me. So he really believed that, we all need to embrace our true selves. And once you do, your life will flourish. And if you're not living authentically, I don't know, it just said that affects every area of your life. And so I'm so proud of him that he was brave enough to accept himself and love himself. And I'm so proud of the way he lived his life. And I hope it inspires, others to do the same.
Well, in a full circle moment, you're invited on the Drew Barrymore show, and you share this story, and she decides to get a tattoo.
Yeah.
I mean, are you like, what would he think about this? Would he be laughing?
He would be freaking out. I can hear him laughing and just jumping up and down. But it was wild. So they invited me to the show, and I'm talking to Drew, and she was incredible. She wrapped me in a hug, and I got to say, I think everyone in the world who's going through anything deserves a hug from Drew Barrymore, because that really has healing powers. But I was talking about Jack, and I said something about how, he didn't waste any time. And she looked at me and she said, "Oh my God, this is so strange, but I'm about to get a tattoo in the next segment. And the word I chose is the word time." And she goes, if you're okay with it, I'd love to dedicate it to Jack. And so it was this beautiful, it felt like a sign. Then it gets even crazier. So she's over there getting the tattoo with Savannah Guthrie, who was promoting a book about faith for children. And so they're having this conversation about tattoos and faith. And Jack loved tattoos. He had 4 of them. And the first tattoo he ever got was a cross. And he talked about how it represented his relationship with God and no one else's. So they're talking about faith, talking about tattoos. And then Drew mentions how one of the first tattoos she ever got was of a cross. So after the segment finishes, she comes over to show me that tattoo. And I said, "Drew, I have to tell you, Jack's first tattoo was a cross." And she's like, "Oh my God, that's wild." And then she's looking at it and she goes, "Wait a second." She goes, "Look at the T." She goes, "Doesn't that look like an upside down cross?" And sure enough, it did. So there were just so many incredible signs. And I felt like it was Jack saying, "I'm here with you and I'm sharing this experience with you." And I'm so grateful. She could not have been lovelier and more generous with her time and energy. She's an incredible person. And that was just such an amazing, amazing experience. And I'm so grateful for it.
For you, what is the little signal that you get from him? I think we all kind of get our own signals from people, but what is it for you?
Absolutely. I have a few things. One of them is cherries. Whenever I see a cherry, or, that feels like Jack, saying hello or making his presence known. So cherries are one. The other one are the cars, G-Wagons. He loved a G-Wagon. I think a matte black G-Wagon was like his dream car. So whenever I see any G-Wagon, I feel like that's a sign. But when I see the matte black, it's like a big sign. And I've told this to my friends, I kind of laugh about it, like that his sign is a G-Wagon. It's, absurd. But when we were heading to the Drew Barrymore show, my friends met here at my apartment before. We get in an Uber to head up to her studio, and what car is driving right in front of us? A matte black G-Wagon. So it felt like, oh, there's Jack saying he's coming along with us,
Without question.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the dream scenario here is you can create a project that is an extension of this life experience. What is your one message for anybody who's deep in grief right now?
Give yourself grace and know that you're not alone. Grief is such an isolating experience. No matter how great your support system is, you're going to feel alone in your grief. And I was fortunate enough to have, a great family, a great job. I had a very full life and people all around me there to lift me up. But even I felt alone, so my heart breaks for the people that don't have the support system that I had. I don't know how they do it. But just know that you're not alone, and that, none of us are going to get through life unscathed, without losing someone we care about. And so, but I don't think any of us are prepared to grieve. So I hope, if anything, that this story going viral and the videos I'm posting on TikTok, just that it's allowing people to open up about their grief. And I think we all need to talk about grief more, because, we're all going to experience it at some point in our life. And I felt like I had no idea how to navigate it. And I still don't. I'm figuring it out. I've got a great psychologist who's amazing and has really helped me through the last few years. But know that you're not alone.
Well, I'm so grateful for your time and for your story. And I know that there are people that are listening who are feeling seen in this moment right now by you. And that's a really special thing.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate it. And thank you for giving me a chance to share my story further. I feel like the whole world is getting to know Jack now. And
Isn't that wild?
So grateful.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing I said the other day,
Jack, you're more famous in death.
I know. He would love this, by the way. He loved Twitter. He used to tweet all the time, and it was his dream to have like one viral tweet. And now I feel like he's finally getting his viral moment he always wanted. So it's amazing. And I mentioned his Twitter account in one of my TikToks, and then I was like, wait, maybe I shouldn't mention this. I probably should go back and read some of these tweets. I'm like, please don't cancel him. Like, who knows what he was tweeting about? But they are funny tweets. So if you want to chuckle, go check them out.
What a riot. Well, where can people follow you?
On TikTok and Instagram. My handle's my name, @Jack Ciapciak. And, I'm going to continue to share stories about Jack and my daily thoughts on grief. And I'd love for people to follow along and share this journey with me.
If you had gotten married, would you have changed your name?
I think we both would have kept our names. But I used to joke that we should trade last names. Like, I become Jack Lorentzen, he becomes Jack.
That's funny. Yeah.
So that, yeah.
And then had you talked about having kids?
Okay, so that's something Jack really lived in the moment, looking back. And anytime the topic of children would come up, because I want to have kids. And I think he did too. But he would always say, like, I don't know. He's like, when the time comes, we'll have that conversation. But I can't think about kids right now. He wasn't someone that, spent his whole life dreaming of being a father, which is, I'm glad it's like
I think he knew he was going to die early.
I agree. It's like he knew his time on earth was short. And
he was giving you little messages.
Yes. And I'm grateful that he wasn't someone who, dreamed of being a father and talked about it a ton, and he didn't get to experience it. I feel like he did get to experience a rich, full life and everything he always wanted. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I think it's as if he knew that, his time was going to be short, and that's why he didn't waste a second of it.
And he may have thought of that engagement party as a wedding.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to thank my wonderful guest, Jack, and remind you to click subscribe. Please leave a 5-star review, and also make sure that you join the Facebook group Reality Life with Kate Casey. If you are looking for my list of what to watch each week in unscripted TV, you can find it at katecasey.substack.com. You can also get bonus episodes, extra episodes, by going to Patreon, patreon.com/Kate Casey. And follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KateCaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter, Threads, and Blue Sky at @Kate Casey. Check back for an all-new next episode, which is the What to Watch list. And I have also fantastic guests coming up next week.
At Hotels.com, we know some travelers crave sand between their toes. Others want to be poolside with a drink on the way. And more often than not, those two people end up in a relationship. With the Hotels.com app, compare properties side by side across amenities like pool and ocean view. Compromise isn't so bad when you're holding a Mai Tai by a pool with an ocean view, agreeing that, yeah, this is better than finding sand in awkward places for 3 days. Book now in the Hotels.com app and find your perfect somewhere.